Hello friends, welcome to YouTube channel Tech Guru Gautam Sral. This video is on eye bolts. Eye bolts happen to be important part of the load lifting. Therefore, it is worth studying. Eye bolts guidelines focus on the safe and the proper usage, emphasizing load limits, installation and maintenance. They outline specific actions to avoid like exceeding rated capacity of the eye bolt, modifying eye bolt and recommended best practices for selecting, inspecting, and handling these fasteners. So, two eye bolts have been shown in this picture, and they are both eye bolt of half-inch size. Key guidelines for eye bolts are as follows: load limit. We are never supposed to exceed the rated load limit of the eye bolt as specified by the manufacturer. So every manufacturer specifies the load limit in tons, and uh, they need to be taken care of. You are not supposed to cross the SWL in any case. Next is the installation. We must ensure that the eye bolt is properly seated with shoulder flush against the load. That means the eye bolt has a shoulder, and that shoulder must touch the load for proper distribution of the load on the eye bolt. Use washers to fill unthreaded areas, but their thickness should not exceed one thread pitch. This is very pictorially we will see and try to understand this uh, installation process, and this is very important. Maintenance. Regularly inspect eye bolts for wear, damage, or corrosion. So any such defect is, if found, they have to be taken out of the usage. They should not be used. Now comes the safe handling. Do not use wrenches, other tools to tighten the eye bolt. That could be dangerous. It can cause accident. In fact, so how should we tighten? Actually, hand tightening is recommended. So you have to tighten the eye bolt with your hands only. Key guidelines for the eye bolt. Angle of lift. It is continuing. Key guidelines are is continuing on this slide also. So the eye bolt work optimally at the vertical lift angles. So if you are doing a vertical lifting on of the load using this eye bolt, then uh, this is going to be used for maximum load lifting. So angles greater than 45 reduce the capacity. So in the case of the angle loading, we should not go below 45 degree of the angle in any case. We have to keep the angle, the sling angle, more than 45 degree in any case. So that ensures proper and safe usage of the eye bolt and the sling in that case. The shock loading, and this is very important, and it is advised to avoid shock loading of the eye bolt or in uh, anything in the rigging. So shock loading in rigging is always avoidable. Gradually increase the lift to minimize stress. So when you are starting the lifting process, you have to start gradually. Slowly you have to lift so that no shock is caused. Modification. Never weld, never machine, never grind the eye bolt, as this can compromise the strength of the eye bolt. That means SWL of the eye bolt will be compromised if you are doing any of this. Environmental conditions. Protect eye bolt from extreme temperature. You should not expose it to the high temperature, otherwise its strength will again be compromised. And a harsh environment, as they can affect its capacity. So specific types of the eye bolt. uh, we have eye bolts of shoulder eye bolt type and designed for both straight and angle loading. Shouldered eye bolts are designed for both straight and angle loading. This is very important to note. And stainless steel eye bolts offer corrosion resistance. So stainless steel made eye bolts are corrosion resistant. Forged eye bolt marked with the size and the working load limit, as you can show in the picture here. The first one is nut type of the eye bolt, and the second one is machinery eye bolt. This is robust and used for heavy load lifting. This is a screw type of the eye bolt with shoulder. This is called shoulder. So it this shoulder gives extra strength to the loading point, because this is the eye and this is the shank and this is the threaded part. Some part of the shank is unthreaded uh, in all these eye bolts. Here, this is shouldered eye bolt. The shoulder provides extra strength to the eye bolt, and this is good for angular loading. Non-shouldered eye bolts are not good for angular loading, and we have to lift the load in a vertical lifting position only. So, in the case of non-shouldered eye, vertical lifting is preferable, not angle loading at all. Let's proceed. Types of the eye bolts are lag eye bolt, metric eye bolt, swivel type of eye bolt, dynamo eye bolt, plain eye bolt, collared eye bolt. As you can see, a huge collar is there. Soldered eye bolt. So you can see this is the shoulder. Collared and soldered are different. Collar, if it is collared, a wide, you can say it has got a wide or large shoulder for extra heavy load lifting. We have dynamo type eye bolt and we have collared eye bolt. So collared eye bolt you can see here, and dynamo type eye bolt has got its neck as the machined one. So this collared one is not machined at the neck. So that is the difference. So they are having a different applications, and that has to be understood. They are different types of the eye bolt. Let's now come to the swivel type of the eye bolt. This is being separately discussed because this is being used nowadays extensively in the industries. Actually, swivel eye bolts are equipped with a rotating eye that allows for the 360 degree of the movement. And this feature of the eye bolt makes them ideal for lifting loads that might need to rotate during the lifting process. So if you know the load is going to rotate during its lifting process, you must use swivel type of the eye bolt. So the eye bolt remains free to align with the load. This is the key feature of the swivel type eye bolt. And as because the eye bolt remains free to align with the load, this reduces stress on the bolt itself. Now, what are the common usage of eye bolt? Lifting applications where the load may not rotate or swivel during the hoisting. Ideal for mobile cranes, winches, and other dynamic lifting environments. Prevents twisting, tangling of the cables during the operation. There are certain limitations also of the swivel type eye bolt. Generally, more expensive than the standard eye bolt. So, swivel type eye bolts will cost you more as compared to the standard ones. The second thing is that the swivel mechanism can be potential point of failure if not properly maintained. So there is a possibility of failure from the swivel point itself if it is not maintained properly. Here, construction of the eye bolt has been shown. So, eye bolt traceability markings. So, you can see half is appearing. This is the eye bolt thread size, half inch. Uh, Heat lot C1 and K trademark of the Ken forging. So, company's name is given here. Heat uh, lot. This is related to temperature that do not expose it to the higher temperature. And this is shoulder type, front view, plain front view. Here you can do vertical loading and angle loading. But in the case of angle loading, you should not go below 45 degree of the angle. That is very much recommended here. The threaded shank must not protrude through the load sufficiently allow full engagement of the nut. So in this case, you have to take this tighten the nut properly, and this shoulder must touch the load body of the load, and also you have to show this gap is maintained, and this gap, the thickness of the spacer must exceed this distance between the bottom of the load and last thread of the eye bolt. So this has to be maintained. Place the washer or a spacer between the nut and the load, that when nut is tightened securely, the shoulder is secured flush against the load surface. So, so if you tighten it here, this load shoulder is going to touch the body of the load. So this is very important in the case of eye bolts. Here some specifications have been given for the eye bolt. It has been marked as A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, etc. So A is this, the diameter of the threaded portion of the eye bolt. B is the length of the shank, and H is the distance of the uh, shank's bottom point to the center of the eye bolt, and then E is the total length of the eye bolt. Similarly, inner diameter is D and outer diameter of the eye is C. So all these are specifications of the eye bolt, and they are given here in the chart. So whenever you buy it, the manufacturer gives you all these specifications in a piece of paper. So ultimate load is 5 times the working load limit. Maximum proof load is 2 times of the working load limit. All bolts threaded. So the threading is there in all the bolts. That is what it is wanted to say. So this is the check thread center is aligned with the center of the eye. This center has to align with the center of the eye. It should be in the vertical line of the center. Otherwise, the eye bolt should not be used if it is shifted in any direction. Check cracking at this point. Basically, failure of the eye bolt takes place at this point, around this point only, where the shank, goes to the eye bolt. So we have to check this uh, position, the status of this eye bolt place very carefully to avoid any kind of failure of the eye bolt. Check the thread is not corroded. That also you have to make sure that the threaded portion is not corroded. Check for any kind of deformation in the eye, and check for the WLL for making sure you do not exceed the maximum capacity of the eye bolt. Check inside of the eye for wear. So here, this is for angle loading, and in the case of angle loading, your shoulder has to touch the body of the load. And here you can see this eye bolt is not properly fitted with the load surface. So uh, this is a wrong position. The solder must be flush with the surface. So use washers or seams to ensure proper alignment with other eye bolts. This is very important. And also here you can see this is the load and this is being lifted with the help of two slings, and two slings have been used. So in this case you can see the eye bolt is okay, angle loading is being done in this manner, but here the eye bolt is not uh, properly fitted. So this is going to bend like this. That is what it is wanting to tell you. So the loading of the eye bolt has to be done in this manner, so that it this eye is pulled along this line. So it should not be perpendicular to the length of the eye bolt. There are certain warnings related to the eye bolt. Loads may slip, trip, or fall if proper eye bolt assembly or lifting procedures are not followed. A falling load may cause serious injury or death in some cases. So we have to be very careful when you are using, eye bolt for the lifting. Read and understand these instructions and follow all eye bolt safety informations presented in the training here. Read and understand and follow the information in diagrams and the charts uh, in the subsequent slide before using the eye bolt assemblies. So, for the inspection, following points are there. Always inspect the eye bolt before use. So, whenever you are going to use the eye bolts, you have to inspect them. Their condition has to be seen carefully. Never use eye bolt that shows the sign of wear or the damage. So, if it is damaged or has got the signs of wear, you should not use those eye bolts. Never use eye bolt if eye or shank is bent or elongated. So these are the caution points. Always be sure threads on the shank and receiving holes are clean. Never machine or grind or cut the eye bolt, because they will put the eye bolt in danger, because their strength will be compromised. Assembly safety. Never exceed the SWL of the eye bolt. Never use regular nut eye bolt nut for the eye bolts for angular lifting. Always use shoulder nut eye bolt or machinery eye bolt for angular lifting. For angular lifts, adjust workload or SWL as the following. At 45 degree, 30% of the SWL. 90 degree, 25% of the SWL. Adjusted workload. So that means you have to give an allowance of 25% in the case of 90-degree lifting, and in the 45-degree lifting, you have to give an allowance of 30%. Never undercut eye bolt to seat the shoulder against the load. You need not uh, cut any portion of the eye bolt, because that is going to uh, compromise with the strength of the eye bolt. Always countersink receiving hole or use washer with the sufficient ID to seat the shoulder. The shoulder must be properly seated on the washer. Always screw eye bolt down completely for proper seating. So that has to be tightened properly so that it sits on the body of the load. Always tighten nuts securely against the load. Now there are two tables here in which the size of the eye bolts is given and their SWL capacity in pounds is given. Here also the metric size is given. That means M6 means 6 of the side of I bolt and their working load limit. That means SWL is given. Here also regular nut I bolt G20291 picture is given, and solder eye bolt is given here, and machinery eye bolts picture. We have already seen them, but this is another case. Cast eye bolts are also available in the market in different sizes. And regular nut and the solder nut eye bolts installation for inline loading. So inline loading, if you are doing more than one eye bolt diameter of the thread, only one nut is required. Nut is required in both the on both the sides. One eye bolt diameter of the thread. Less, use two nuts. If threaded portion is less, then use two nuts above and below. So tighten hex nut securely against the load. And tap depth, if it is tap depth is 2.5 times the diameter of the shank, then you have to use uh, nut on the above part, and rest of the threaded portion of the eye bolt will go deep into the load. So the contact is proper here. The contact was not proper here. So both the sides are secured. Here contact is okay. On the lower part of the eye bolt is secured. So this way you have to take decision depending on the diameter and the portion of the threaded portion of the eye bolt is going deep into the hole. So tap depth, this hole is called tap depth, and tap depth uh, has to be, measured in terms of diameter of the shank. So here it is wrong because this tap depth is very small, and a portion of the eye bolt threaded portion is, unsecured. So this is going to cause failure when you are lifting the load. So operational safety is very important in the case of eye bolt, and always stand clear of the load. So whenever the load is being lifted, you have to stand clear of the load. Means you have to keep yourself away from the load so that in any case if it falls, it doesn't damage you. You stay secure. Always lift the load with a steady, even pull. Do not give a jerk to the load. Always apply load to the eye bolt in the plane of the eye and not at an angle. So always apply load to eye bolt in the plane of the eye and not to an angle. So when you are trying to lift in the beginning, you have to take care of this point. Never exceed the working load limit or SWL of the eye bolt. See table 1 and 2 as I have already shown you. When using lifting slings of two or more legs, make sure the load in the legs are calculated using the angle from the vertical to the leg and properly size of the shoulder nut or machinery eye bolt for angular load. So here you can see this angle is more than 45 degree, and they are using two eye bolts for lifting of the load. So it is okay. The direction of the pull is upward. Here it is wrong because only one sling is being used. Only one sling has been inserted through both the eye bolts, and they have been put into the bow cycle. So this is wrong practice, and this should not be done. What is the correct one? The correct one is that we have to use two different, slings and cycles to lift the load. So, after the sling has been properly attached to the eye bolts, apply force slowly. You have to start slowly. Watch the load carefully and be prepared to stop applying force if the load starts buckling. Buckling means if it is weak, it is not strong enough to take the load, then it will start buckling. So buckling may occur if the load is not stiff enough to resist the compressive forces. These the two sides, from these two sides it is getting compressed. The load is getting compressed. So because of this, buckling could happen. So, not stiff enough to resist the compressive forces which results from the angular loading. So, in the case of angular loading, this compressive force is applied on the load, and because of that, this buckling happens. Especially in the case of billets, it might happen. In the case of lifting of TMT bars, also this happens. So one has to take care, otherwise it might slip from the uh, you know uh, lifting process, and it can cause accident. Machinery eye bolt installation for inline and angular loading. Machinery eye bolts are primarily intended to be installed into the tapped holes. After load on the eye bolt have been calculated, select the proper size of the eye bolt for the job. For angular lifts, adjust the workload limits as follows: 45 degree 30% and 90 degree 25% as discussed earlier. Second point says drill and tap the load to correct size to a minimum depth of one and a half the eye bolt size beyond the shank length of the machinery eye bolt that has been shown pictorially earlier. The thread the eye bolt into the load until the shoulder is flush and securely tightened against the load. This is also important for secure lifting. If the plane of the machinery eye bolt is not aligned with the sling line, estimate the amount of unthreading rotation necessary to align the plane of the eye bolt properly. So sometimes it does not come in the eye line with the lifting line. So for that, slight rotation is required, and that should be done carefully. Remove the machinery eye bolt from the load and add seams or the washers of a proper thickness to adjust the angle of the plane of the eye to match the sling line. So this is very important when you are lifting. Use table number 3 to estimate the required seam thickness or amount of the unthreaded rotation required. So here are the things. Eye bolt size is this. The seam thickness has to be selected accordingly. So this type of table helps you in the selection of the seam or the washer uh, properly and do your job in a safe manner. So seam thickness required to change the rotation 90 degree. Minimum tap depth is basic shank length plus one half the nominal eye diameter. So these are the guidelines that you must keep in the mind for proper lifting using eye bolts. So that's all in this video, my friends. Thank you very much for staying up to the last slide. And if you have got any query, my friends, do write in the comment box. I would like to answer them as early as possible. And also, don't forget to like if you liked the video, and uh, subscribe the channel. Yeah, if you subscribe the channel, you will keep getting the notification of the new videos that I am making. Thank you so much. Stay tuned.